On the occasion of International Women's Day, we at the World Stroke Academy want to celebrate the achievements and careers of women in stroke and recognize their contributions, their research, and their mentoring. We interviewed outstanding women who are nominated by World Stroke Organization board members for their important work in the field of stroke. I am Laura Ceci Galanos, Executive Manager of the World Stroke Academy, and I'm here today with Professor Sandra Billinger. Professor Sandra is professor at the University of Kansas Medical Center. She leads the research in exercise and cardiovascular health laboratory and is Assistant Director, Imaging Core and the Neurovascular Division Director, KU Alzheimer's Disease Center. Professor Billinger is an internationally renowned speaker on exercise testing and interventions in people living with stroke. Professor Sandra, first of all, congratulations on the nomination from the WSO board members. It is wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you, Laura. And I'm absolutely honored to be here today.
The first question that I want to ask you is, what does being outstanding in your field of work mean to you? So how do you usually measure success?
When I think of what does it mean to be outstanding in my field of stroke research, it's really taking a step back and looking at the successes of the people around me. I think it's really important to look at whether I'm attracting, the best and the brightest into my lab team, and then looking at their successes. Are they meeting their goals by the time they graduate? I also believe that it's really important to create opportunities, both internal and external, to my lab, where our trainees, our research staff, and our research participants really feel empowered and integrated into our work, with really that ultimate goal for making a difference in the lives of people who are living with stroke.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. So then let me ask you, besides exercise and cardiovascular health, in what other areas would you have liked, or maybe still would like to stand out?
When I think about what else do we want to be known for, across my career, I'd really say that my lab team is really driven to make an impact in helping us understand brain health after stroke. And specifically, I'm talking about the cerebrovascular response. What does it look like with various stimulation? Specifically, we're using exercise as a physiological stimulus to really understand how the brain responds to exercise, whether that's moderate intensity training, and we have some work looking at high intensity interval training. And then personally and professionally for me, where I really want to make an impact, and I've been advocating for exercise for people living with stroke for a while now, but the real big goal for me is to have this integrated cardiac rehabilitation program that's modified and adapted for people who are living with stroke. And so if we can teach people and give them the information on how to best exercise, how to be successful at that, thinking about secondary stroke prevention, so risk factor modification, if we can package that into that modified cardiac rehabilitation program during stroke recovery, that would be really just a professional goal for me.
Thank you for this. Now we are in the topic of women in stroke. We are in the month of March, which is, International Women's Day, March 8th. My next question to you is, in your opinion, what are the reasons for women's lack of advancement into, let's say, leadership positions, despite no visible barriers?
Regarding the invisible barriers, I think it's important to actually take a step back, and I think we see that there are still some visible barriers for women in advancement. I think sometimes when I look at are we being inclusive of women in studies? Are we making sure that we have equal representation when I look at editorial boards or grant review sections, so whether it's study section, panels for speaking? Are we being inclusive of women? And so if we aren't, then those are barriers again, when we give talks and are at the table for presentations or discussion, those things help women take those steps into leadership. So I think that is an important role. I think sometimes we can still see those things in place where we have very few women sitting at the table, and we need to do a better job of that. As far as, how do we help, what may be contributing to women lack of leadership, I think we still have to strive to help people, especially, the next generation of scientists, bringing them up and helping them sit at the table, get their foot in the door so that they can engage in conversation and hear those things. With my trainees, I try to bring them to different meetings or have them sit on different committees with me so that they start getting their foot in the door and be able to make their own impact and be able to advance their career and those of women after them. And so again, as women, we need to make sure that we are making sure that those coming up after us are having opportunities and that we're doing our part to create those.
So you just mentioned the younger generation of scientists. As a doctor, as a woman, what is your advice to maybe younger female colleagues who feel like they are not taken seriously by patients or even their colleagues at work? Would you have any advice for them?
I think if a junior colleague came and talked to me, early career researcher, or maybe a former DPT student or physiotherapist who felt like they weren't being taken seriously, it's always important to ask why and what their perspective is. I would try to understand the situation and really try to help them navigate that. I think speaking more broadly, I hope, and I would encourage that person to maybe have, mentors. And I think those things are really important, that women provide opportunities to be sounding boards, to be able to help somebody work through that process and make sure that they're being heard and that they're able to address it. Also, the value of having a mentor or an advocate is if they're not comfortable because of that junior status, or maybe they're new to the position, being able to, as somebody who's established, to be able to maybe open that door or have a conversation and maybe express what this person is feeling or what they've experienced, and then having the more senior person take on that role and try to have that conversation to work through that. But ultimately, having that person, that junior colleague, also engaged in the discussion, I think is really important.
Thank you, Sandra, for joining me today, for having this discussion, answering our questions. It was lovely to speak to you. And I want to congratulate you once again on the nomination from the World Stroke Organization board members. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think it's really great that the World Stroke Academy is taking the time to really highlight women who have really made outstanding contributions to our field. I think it's really important that we continue to open doors for others and really highlight each other's successes, and making sure that we're bringing people along and holding them up as much as we can, so that we can continue to advance women in science, and especially women doing stroke research. This is such an important area, aspect of research and clinical care, that we need to do our best to make sure that women are engaged in conversations and sitting at the table. Thank you.